Joining me now for reaction are two esteemed attorneys. Saul Wisenberg was the deputy independent counsel during the investigations into Bill Clinton, knows Brett Kavanaugh, and Scott Bolden is a Democrat and chair of the National Bar Association Political Action Committee. Great to see you. Let's start with you, Scott.
Sure.
I think it's completely fair game for the Senate use their constitutional responsibility seriously, question Kavanaugh's judicial philosophy, his approach to the Constitution, and ask him about past cases. That's what you should do in your process of reviewing these nominees. But what you heard from Chuck Schumer is something quite different. He's now demanding, contrary to what he said 1 year ago, 1 year and 3 months ago, that nominees must say how they're going to rule on certain hot-button cases. What is that all about?
Or their philosophies. Listen,
that's not what he said,
this is all about Obamacare. This is all about abortion or Roe v. Wade. And it's all about whether this justice nominee believes that the president can either be prosecuted or subpoenaed and what have you. These are not hot-button issues for the Democrats. These are real issues. And when you take the gloves off in those Senate hearings, if you look at maybe the last 5 to 10 that have been published or that we've seen, you've got non-answers, you've got questions that skirt the issue. The Democrats, and I think some Republicans, are going to come out and say, tell me what your feelings or thoughts are on Roe v. Wade. When he went to the D.C. Circuit, Justice Kavanaugh, when he went to the D.C. Circuit, he said he would follow Roe v. Wade. But that was a mix, because the problem with that is he was going to the D.C. Circuit. Now he's going to be on the Supreme Court. Why shouldn't we be able to ask him his feelings on Roe v. Wade now?
Well, for one, Ruth Bader Ginsburg at her confirmation hearing was very concerned about being asked specific questions. Chuck Schumer, among many other Democrats, when we had Kagan up, when we had Sotomayor up, Democrats were in unison.
Different place.
Well,
different time, different place. And you're about to shift this court to the right now.
I actually think you're wrong about that. And a lot of conservatives are probably not going to be happy to hear this. I think you guys ought to be really thanking yourselves, thanking this president that he nominated someone like Kavanaugh, who is he is to the right probably a little bit of Kennedy, but the idea that Brett Kavanaugh is going to like radically, move to take the first abortion case and overturn Roe, I don't see that.
Well, he's done violence and prior opinions to all three of those areas. The first thing, but here's the thing: when you use hysterics and what have you, what about the Justice Crisis Network, who's going to spend $10 million supporting Kavanaugh? Judicial,
right?
Call it
well,
what you
ACLU,
want. It's $10 million.
Well, the left is doing the same thing. You saw
no, not $10 million.
That's the best solve.
Why are the Democrats hysterical, but the Justice Crisis Network isn't?
They're watching their flank. That's why. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you guys just want them to be, unilateral disarmament.
Republicans and Democrats have challenges.
Yeah, the left wants Republicans to go into this confirmation fight, Saul, without offering any defense of this candidate, of this judicial nominee. They have made this about legislating from the bench, because that's what they want the court to do. They want the court to legislate new rights into the Constitution that the framers never intended. Richard Blumenthal, I want to share something with you, Saul, that he said today. I could not believe what I was hearing and the snarly way that he said it. Let's watch.
Judge Kavanaugh, you don't belong in this building as a justice. My colleagues should be a no on this nominee unless Judge Kavanaugh specifically commits that he will recuse himself on any issues that involve President Trump's personal financial dealings or the special counsel.
Okay, Saul, explain that one for us, please.
Well, there's absolutely no basis for it. There's no basis in ethics or history for the concept that you can't rule on a case involving a president if he happened to have appointed you. Now, Rehnquist, if you recall, recused himself from the Watergate tapes case, but that's because he was a member of the Nixon administration and a high official in the Justice Department. But it's just ridiculous, and you're going to hear more of this kind of stuff. And you're right, Laura. Really, I've got no problem with people opposing a judicial candidate because they oppose his constitutional philosophy or her constitutional philosophy. But the Democrats don't want to play that game, because then they would have to admit in public hearings that really they believe the court should just enshrine their notion of progressivism into the Constitution. They really can't win an argument based on textualism and originalism, and so they have to come up with these phony issues, and that's what you're going to see, and it's going to be very brutal, and it's going to involve a lot of falsehoods, and you know, the conservatives just have to, Republicans have to stay the course. That's all there is to it.
But, Saul, why shouldn't the Democrats and the Republicans be able to ask about specific issues regarding his view on Roe v. Wade? Why shouldn't they be able to ask about his views on immigration and his prior cases that he's decided in the D.C. Circuit? That's not shenanigans. That's doing real good cross-examination, direct examination to get a feel for what this next justice is going to be. That's not shenanigans at all. That's real discussion to know what's going on.
Because, Scott, there's been a rule that's been followed for decades that a judicial candidate should not opine on something, on a specific issue that may come before him or her. And it's gone on with both parties for at least the last 50 years. And by the way,
I don't know of any rule like that. There's a lot of
hypocrisy, and there's a lot of hypocrisy in Washington. But there's no area full of more hypocrisy than judicial selection. As Laura pointed out when she quoted Schumer from Justice Ginsburg's nomination fight, the parties totally changed positions depending on whose ox is being gored about what you can ask. Now, the fact is it's absolutely fair game. It's absolutely fair game to get into questions of judicial philosophy, and you can find out a lot about a candidate when you do that, but it's not fair game to ask them how they're going to rule on something.
Well, what did Brett say?
But that's not what I said.
What did Brett say last night? What did Judge Kavanaugh say last night? He said, I will approach every case with an open mind, an independent view of the judiciary, which I think is, most people believe that's what the court should be. We don't want a court, a Supreme Court, that acts like it's the super legislature on these issues that Congress can't, either state legislatures or the Congress can't get its act together on, whether it's immigration or any of these other social issues. Let those percolate up through the states and be handled in due course. You see, after 45 years of Roe versus Wade, the issue is not settled. The country is still roiling over 50 million babies being killed in the womb because of this sacrosanct right that was emanating out of penumbras in the Constitution. That didn't work, and I think that's what the left wants to keep going. Didn't work. I want to play one more thing for you, Scott, though. One more thing. This was Feinstein on Kavanaugh's view of the Second Amendment. Let's watch.
Because the issue of gun safety is so important to me, I want to mention how extreme Kavanaugh's views are in this area. He argued in 2011 against Washington, D.C.'s ban because weapons like AR-15s are in, quote, common use.
Kavanaugh's views on the Second Amendment are straight out of the gun lobby playbook.
I mean, again, this is the most facile way of looking at case law. Do you know the case he's talking about, the Heller case?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, do you know what Brett actually wrote in that case? Are you aware of it?
That's my memory, but I've read the opinion several times.
Okay, he said our task is to apply the Constitution. We have the full screen. And precedents of the Supreme Court, regardless of whether the result is one we agree with as a matter of first principles or policy. That was the 2011 case following on from Heller. He was applying the Heller case. The fact that they don't like AR-15s, which are one of the most commonly owned guns in the United States, long guns in the United States, that's fine. California has rules against that. But as a matter of constitutional law, Scott, it's very different than being a legislator.
But you conflate the issues.
No, I separate the branches of government, Scott.
I do too. But you conflate the issues in this regard. If you're going to be ruling on abortion issues, why should I not be able to ask you, what are your professional feelings or your thoughts on Roe v. Wade?
Feelings don't matter for a judge. Your feelings don't matter as a judge.
Well,
the Constitution matters.
Okay, his thoughts.
His judicial philosophy.
Parts of it already.
His judicial philosophy is well known.
And that's all I hear from those senators, that they disagree with his rulings or they disagree with what his lower court rulings or writings have been. That's fair game.
Saul, final word. Will he get confirmed, yes or no, do you think, in the end?
Oh, he'll definitely get confirmed. But, you know, the real question about Roe versus Wade that he clearly can't be asked is, I don't care what you thought about Roe versus Wade when it was decided in 1973. The question is whether or not it should remain valid law if a case comes before the court. And everyone would agree that's just something you can't ask somebody who's a judicial nominee.
But I can
and
ask
you'll have to try to glean it from his writings.
Right, we can't prejudice future cases. Fantastic segment to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us.